Welcome to Kick Back with Chris. Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast.
Hello everyone, how are we doing? First of all, what do you think's a new intro? I had a couple of people comment on the original intro saying how I sound a little bit grumpy in it. I think what I was trying to go for wasn't grumpy. It was more sort of neutral and calm, with a hint of I need to get an intro done as quickly as possible, and I never got around to changing it. So yeah, we've got our own intro. There's actually a few different versions of it that I might play around with over the coming weeks. But yeah, getting professional now, guys. Getting professional. So I hope you've all had a great week. Today it's a bit of a different one. We're going to go from a bit of a business feel to this one today. Later on, we're going to be joined by our guest, Mr. Brad Cumbers, who's going to be discussing the Martyialitics software. It is a system that's set up for instructors and school owners. And basically, it helps you, well, I suppose it helps you run your school, everything from attendance tracking to billing, and then everything in between as well. So he's going to be joining us to chat a little bit about that. It's actually some software that I do use in my school, and it's having tried different things. I feel it works really well for us, and for my school, I feel personally that my school sort of sits in the middle between how a lot of schools work. You know, you have your more commercialised schools, and then you have your very sort of hardcore traditional schools, maybe running classes once a week. I like to sort of feel my school sort of sits in the middle in there. So I find it works great for me, and really want to try and help these guys get the message out. So I'm going to be chatting to Brad later, so you can have a listen to that one. So before that, we've got a couple of things that have been going on news-wise. First of all, really good news. This one we've got. I've had my first couple of bookings for my workshops come up, and the reason that's a good one, obviously, it's nice for me because I like to feel wanted, I suppose. No, but I like to get. Now, joking aside, I do like to get out and teach, and more importantly, it means that we've generated some money for Jackie Chan's Dragon's Heart Europe charity. The aim with this one, for those out there that are interested, the workshops are going out at around about sort of 250 for the workshop for sort of 90 minutes, 2 hours thereabouts. That's those details we can sort of work out. But with £50 from every workshop going straight to the charity, so it's great that we've got our first bookings made, and that the charity is going to be able to benefit from it. I've had several people telling me that I'm charging too little for the workshops, but I want these to be something that schools both large and small, and we can arrange something. And the thing with this is everybody gets to benefit. I enjoy teaching the workshops. The students hopefully have a great time, and the charity gets to benefit. And ultimately, the people the charity are supporting get to benefit. So. Again, if you're interested, drop me a line and we'll see what we can work out. The posters are all over Facebook at the minute anyway. It was earlier this week, it was Mr. Donnie Yen, if those of you that know Donnie from his movies, probably most well known recently for the Ip Man series. It was his birthday, so happy birthday to Donnie Yen. If he's listening, I'm sure there's the possibility he might be, you never know these days. But no, joking aside, happy birthday to Donnie. There was a really cool video posted on social media from lots of people in the industry that contributed to it. I'll actually include that in the show notes so you can go and have a little look and see all the cool messages that people sent over to him. So an area I wanted to talk about today, it's something that I've been speaking to a number of different instructors with over a couple of weeks now. Initially I thought it was just my school, but having reached out to other people, it would appear that this is more of a sort of a a global thing really. Sort of the increase in kids quitting really easily and parents allowing it to happen. Now I know it's a bit of maybe a controversial or subjective one, but these are the sort of topics and discussions that I want to have on the podcast. I think the thing to keep in mind before going through all of this is, well, actually, before I do say anything, what prompted this to a certain degree was maybe think about it was a video I actually posted on Facebook earlier this week of my daughter doing a back handspring. I'll come back to the relevance of that in a few minutes, but we're living in a society that's very much a pick up and put down society now, where people's attention is shifting on a really rapid basis. Everything is instant, so they've got unlimited choice on things like Netflix and Amazon and YouTube, and kids and adults are sort of, if things don't match their expectation level based on this instant on choice that they have, they seem to switch off and move on really, really quickly. Competition is something, that competitive spirit is being removed systematically from our social structure, from sort of the education system upwards. Now, that's not a get at schools or at teachers. They're working with the systems that they have put upon them. But there's no denying the fact, you look at a school sports day now and there's no competition. It's all about everybody being a winner. And we all know that in reality, in life, we cannot all be winners all of the time. We can strive, we can work hard, we can push ourselves to try and be a winner, but ultimately, you can't be a winner all of the time. And unfortunately, kids are having the opportunity to compete removed, and then they're struggling to know how to deal with the stresses and the worries and of trying to achieve. So they're just ducking out. They're dodging it wherever they can. We've got social media and the pressures of social media everywhere now. It's on our watches, on our phones, on our tablets, on our computers, on our TV screens. It follows us around. It's even in cars now. It's everywhere, and that constant pressure of expectation, of worrying about judgment. I personally feel this is one of the reasons why parents now are feeling, and as a parent myself, I'm saying this, we feel a little bit more judged by a wider audience. I think the thing to keep in mind here as well is that as parents, it is okay to force your kids to do things. Somewhere at some point, people started to think it's not acceptable. People are worrying about what parents are saying in the playground, what people are going to say in social media. Maybe somebody might report me or say something, and all of these worries and concerns are coming out of this sort of horrible sort of melting pot of social media. The thing is, it is okay to force your kids to do stuff. My parents did it to me. I wouldn't be sat here now having this discussion with you if it wasn't for the fact that my parents forced me into going to my class. The honest truth of it is I tried to quit martial arts. I wanted to be lazy. I wanted to sit on my backside and play computer games. And I had that option removed from me by my parents. They made me go to the class. Just the same as if my kids turn around to me tomorrow and said, "Dad, I don't want to go to school," I wouldn't be kind of like, "Oh, okay, it's fine, you don't have to go to school." Of course they have to go to school. They have to go to school because the system tells me I have to send the kids to school, but bigger reason than that is I want them to do well. I want them to succeed, and in order to that, they need that education. Okay, so they are going to school. As adults, how often do we have things that we don't want to do on a daily basis, but we have to do them? That expectation is there, that requirement is there. We can't just simply duck out. And the worrying thing for me is the amount of times I'm now seeing parents going, "Oh, you don't want to do it anymore, Jimmy? That's okay. I won't force you to do something you don't want to do." The problem with that is, what is that teaching them? When they come up against something that they maybe don't like as much anymore, or they're worried about doing, they quit. That's what we do. We quit when things get hard, and that's no way to go about bringing up the next generation, because ultimately they're going to pass that message on too. And guys, I get it. It's hard. It is really hard. Now, the reason I brought up the video of my daughter that I posted on Facebook is, for a short time, she was really, really upset about going into her gymnastics class. Now, as her father, I knew that it wasn't that she didn't enjoy the class. She loved the class. She was worried about something and she was having a hard time vocalizing it, putting it into words as a 7-year-old. She was finding it difficult and upsetting, and she didn't quite know how to talk about it. So she would cry and she would say she didn't want to go. But I knew that she did want to go, and more importantly, as her father, I knew that she would benefit from going. There is no way, if I'd have let her quit, that she would have been able to stand and do that back handspring in front of me with a beaming smile, with the understanding of that when things get hard, I work harder. She achieved that back handspring, and that is a message that will stick with her now for the rest of her life. She had a problem. It was worrying her. She worked hard, she overcame the issue, and now she can do the things that she was worried about. And I personally feel that is a super, super important message that as adults, as parents, we need to be encouraging our kids to get over. How many times as instructors out there have you had a parent in that will turn to their child and say, if I sign you up to this class, you aren't going to quit, are you? You are going to do it. I'm not going to waste this money. And then less than 6 months later, you get the email saying, Jimmy doesn't like it anymore. He doesn't want to come. You know, in reality, is it that Jimmy doesn't like it? Or does it mean something else? Does it mean I'm worried about grading? I'm worried about sparring. I don't want to get hurt. I think the other kids are better than me. Or here's the big one, and this is the one that it was for me, going back to me as a 10-year-old. I'm feeling a little bit lazy. I want to stay at home and play computer games. That's the one, I think, in reality, that gets most kids. The grass is greener. When they start the class, it's new, it's sparkly, it's exciting. And as that newness wears off, it's our job, as instructors and as parents, to encourage them to stick with the thing that they commit to initially, to help them work through those periods of when it loses its shine a little bit. You know, to remind them what it was that initially got their interest. Now again, as an instructor, and I'm sure there are others out there that will say this to any parents that are listening now, if your child is genuinely unhappy in class, we will tell you the last thing we want in class is a child that is upset, that is crying, that is angry about being in that session. We will talk to you and we will tell you and we will help you through it, or ultimately we will decide that maybe the class isn't for them. But if your child is coming to class, they are clearly enjoying it, and it is simply because they are put off by the idea of putting in some effort, then we have to help them work through this, to talk with your instructor, liaise with the other students, and maybe work out a way of sort of car sharing, taking it in turns, and helping them that way to sort of break through that sort of down phase. You know, the last thing we want is for kids to get in their head when things get hard, we quit. And if we allow them to quit when they use the excuse of I don't like it anymore, you know, does that I don't like it anymore mean some of those things I mentioned earlier? They're worried about grading, they're worried about sparring, they're worried about other kids being better. Is it just the pressure of everything that's going on now, and that is their get out? So parents, if you hear your kids say to you, I don't like it anymore, don't just take that at face value. Dig into it. Find out why. If you don't believe that that is true, if it's something else, then you take them to class. You are the parent, they are the child, you make that decision. Again, I know this is going to be a little bit of a subjective one, and not everyone's going to agree with it, but that's my take on it. You know, I'm talking from experience here that I had it with me. You know, I wanted to quit martial arts. I genuinely thought that I didn't like it. In reality, I just was being lazy, and I wanted to sit on my backside and play games on my computer. That obviously was a 30-minute to an hour window. That if I'd have been allowed to take that route, what would I be doing now? I have absolutely no idea. Certainly wouldn't be talking to you guys. So, moving on, I think it's time we get our guest on. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be speaking to Mr. Brad Cumbers of Martyialitics, who's going to be talking to us a little bit about the system that they use and how it can benefit your school and what the system can do for you. And then we're actually going to be, after that, we're going to be having some listener recordings, which, if I'm absolutely honest, I've not listened to yet. So I don't know who sent them in or what the content is going to be. So that'll be an interesting one. So we're going to just break now, just a quick ad break, and then we're going to get straight into the interview.
You're listening to Kick Back with Chris, the martial arts podcast, brought to you by www.onlinekicking.co.uk.
Okay then, so joining us on the phone now, we have Mr. Brad Cumbers of Martyialitics. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm great, thanks, Chris. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. And for the first recording in a while here, and I'm going to sound like a typical Brit now, I'm going to have a moan. It's this first recording first recording in weeks where I've actually got the windows shut and I don't have to listen to pigeons and planes whilst I'm trying to do a podcast recording. So yeah, it's a little bit cooler today, thankfully for me, because I'm one of those sort of vampires that burns instantly.
In contrast, I'm outside in the sun looking at the bees. So. I'll take what I can get in this country.
You see, I'm not jealous one bit. Not jealous one bit. So I've already done just a brief introduction to yourself and what you guys do in the podcast leading up to this. But I thought it'd be really cool to get you on. We've been chatting on and off on Facebook now for years, and this is one of the cool things about this podcast is it actually forces us into having conversations with people. It's brilliant. But we've been chatting back and forth. Excuse. I know. We've been chatting back and forth now, obviously, about your software and just martial arts in general. And we thought it'd be really good to get you on to chat about Martyialitics and about the business in general. But first of all, it'd be really nice, because I think this is actually really relevant, and it ties in nicely to one of the reasons why I like to use your software, is you actually have a martial arts history. You have a background in training, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So that's kind of the reason we started Martyialitics in the first place. Is I was training in a kung fu style called Choi Lei Fat Buxing style, which means Northern Victory in Cantonese. But I was training that in Perth in Western Australia. You can probably tell that I've got an outrageous Australian accent, but I do live in the UK, so don't hold it against me. So I was training in that for a number of years, and I worked my way up to an instructor level after a while, and helped out with running the school a little bit, and noticed that we were using cards, like attendance cards, that you manually check every time. So a student would come to the school and pick up a card and put it in another box, and then the instructors would tick it off, and there's just zero analytics around that, and it kind of bothered me because my other background is in web analytics and advertising and graphic design and that sort of thing, and sort of wanted to marry the two. So initially it was just going to be a simple tool for our school to use, just like a student database with a attendance sort of thing, and apparently people liked it and wanted to use it, so we just kept going. Yeah,
I remember. How many years has it been now? Is it?
We're in our 5th year now. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's gone really fast. But we're still, we consider ourselves really, really small. So we haven't, in our minds, we haven't finished it by any means, and we still haven't launched properly yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one of the cool things that I do really like about your software, and again, that's why I was asking you about your background, is I've used other systems out there before in the past, and some of them they're very good, but they're developed by the people that don't really have an understanding of martial arts. And I think sometimes when you try and relate the issues that you're having to these people, they don't really understand. I think you have to have had an experience of training in a class first of all, and then being an instructor of some sorts as well, to sort of get an appreciation for what may seem like a small thing to a developer is actually quite a large thing in a school setting.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. It's like any good software engineer would consider themselves a problem solver, but if they don't understand the problem, it's kind of difficult to solve.
Now I've been using this, I don't know how many years within my school.
You've been with it for quite a while.
I think it's from near the start.
3 or 4 years. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I've seen the development of it, and what I've enjoyed personally is and just to give the listeners out there an idea about why I am so keen on this software within my school. One, it works great for us, but two, when we've had little hiccups, for example, when there was a revision, when there was an update, and we were still using, we'd got 2 iPad 2s located in our reception area, and the software, it just wasn't working, wasn't connected, wasn't, for whatever reason, didn't want to play, and I dropped you guys a message. 3 hours later, it was working. And that sort of thing is hard to find.
Which is weird, really, when you think about it, because, I mean, you obviously want it to be working for as many people as possible. Now, it's funny though, because it's a fine line you've got to straddle a little bit. in terms of pushing technology a little bit and keeping the older tools alive as well. So you don't want to sort of leave anyone behind, but you also sort of have to. It's a really fine line you've got to tread, trying to keep the majority in play, but without sort of stifling that innovation as well. So it's fun. Every day is fun.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me, I find that the system is so simple to use, which is good for me. But we've got. I mean, we used to the minute our youngest age group is 4.
Yep.
But we did actually used to have a preschool 3-year-old class as well. Obviously, it was a parent and child class. But even the 3-year-olds were able to come in through reception, get out a little stool, stand on the stool, look for their photograph, press the picture, and sign themselves in.
That's super cute.
Yeah.
I need a photo of that.
But that's one of the things for those people who haven't used this system that, you know, there's the option in there. There's maybe you could describe. There's multiple options available for allowing students to actually register in class, and indeed for like you say, the old school instructors, they have the option to be in control should they wish. So perhaps I'll let you talk about it.
we sort of we designed that from a instructor's point of view, really. Most of the software is designed to, all of the software really is from an iPad or tablet perspective. So you generally, my ideal vision for it was if I was teaching in a school and I wanted to do things on the fly while I'm teaching, is to pick up my iPad and just be able to quickly get to the information that I need, or check people in, or take the role, or so I'm standing there on the mat. I can see the people in front of me that are about to train, and I can just tick them in, and I'm done. There's no back and forth. There's no entering data at the end of the day or anything like that. It's just done on the fly, and it's nice and simple to use. So that's the whole goal behind it. But you can also have your students check in themselves. You can set it up so they can type their name in, or just start the first few letters, and they can just tick themselves off what class they're about to attend, because they can do multiple. Or they can find themselves on a picture and just and do it that way.
Which is super cool, because as you said at the start, obviously, I mean, there are some people that, you know, they've been teaching since time began, and they're used to having a traditional sort of register and a book and a pen and ticking boxes. And the first one you described there, where you can actually press the screen and sign your own students in, it's very close to the same sort of idea. For us personally, though, the self-check-in system, it's just brilliant. Obviously,
that's great.
With the adults, you know, you can't take stupidity out of the equation. You will get those. You'll always get those adults that will go, "Oh, I've just signed the wrong person in." It's like, well, thanks, mate. Why did you do that?
Well, the good thing is you can undo that.
Yes,
and check them somewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
So
Thank goodness that is there. That's all I will say. If you could just give us sort of a brief overview of the system and what it can do and how it can work for a wide variety of different school types and different school owners.
Yep, absolutely. So initially, when we started the development, it was for the smaller schools, which made sense because we're sort of like your 50 to 300 students, and then. But now, since we've grown, we've added more features. We cater for anything up to, say, 1,500 students in one location, which is massive. And we've also got quite a few franchises on board now as well, which is really good. So our focus is more on time saving and automating what we can, but also sort of just empowering decision making. So our dashboard is more a live feed of what's happened and what's happening and what the trend lines are for as far as attendance and growth and your income, all that as one sort of picture goes. So at a glance, you can make quick decisions on what should we be doing today. Is Tuesday the best day for this class, for example? That sort of thing. Rather than having to generate massive reports and then find time each month to look through them and make some decisions that way, because nobody's got time for that. They just want to be teaching, especially owners like yourself. That when you've got your instructors helping you, but generally you're doing most of the classes yourself, and you just want to be teaching.
Yeah,
and that's why you're doing it in the first place. It's not about business admin.
Absolutely,
it's about martial arts.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that, it's an inevitable part of the growth of the school. I mean, I remember when my school had 20 students, how much simpler life was. And now over 200 students. If you're not careful, things can become very overly complicated. And any system that can help simplify a process is going to help. Which, as I say, for us, why the self-check-in, we have 2 iPads located in our waiting area because kids love iPads. They can just use them. They're just it's just like hardwired into their DNA to know how to use iPads.
I know, it's weird. My 9-month-old can use mine. It freaks me out.
Exactly. So they come in and they're just tap the iPad and then they're in class. And just as routine, we always say before we start, has everybody checked in? Because there's always that one Jimmy goes, oh no, I haven't. And then off they run and they go and sign in and then come back. But that removes all of because we used to use attendance cards, and I'm not knocking people that still use attendance cards, but in reality, that I remember training as a 15-year-old and using attendance card system, and I'm nearly 40 now, and people are still using attendance cards. And some people might say, "Oh, if it's not broken, don't fix it." But I think the reality of it is now, and this is a conversation we'd had in a slightly different way, but with things like data protection now being a lot tighter, you can't be just leaving piles of attendance cards slewing around your gym or a sports hall with people's phone numbers and medical history and address details. But
there's also the flip side to it is that attendance is the sort of heartbeat of the school. So if people start to drop off attendance, that's the first sign that the school's in trouble and something needs to change.
Yeah.
But if you are using cards, you have no idea, really. You might think, oh, the class is getting a bit smaller today, but it's a real gradual thing over time, and you'll have no idea about it until probably it's too late, and you've got to do something drastic to turn it around. And with martial arts business being as cutthroat as it is, and everyone sort of locally trying to get as many students in as possible, when you've got that inevitable churn, there's always that percentage of people that either stop training for whatever reason, they have to move away, they change schools, or their parents leave, or something like that you don't have any effect on. There's nothing you can do about it. It makes getting those new students in and keeping tabs on the school so important. And the attendance tracking allows you to do that, and you want to be able to do that as simply as possible to make sure everyone's using it so it's accurate. So it seems like a really simple thing, but it's super important.
Absolutely, and the couple of the things that the system does that I really like, and it's small details, and one of them in particular, the first one I'll mention is the fact that we have it set up so that if it doesn't see them after 14 days, it zips them an email just to say, hi, we've not seen you, I hope everything's okay. 9 out of 10 times it's just they've been too lazy to come to class, but there'll be those ones where maybe there has been a family issue, something's popped up, and thanks for checking in, and it's unfortunate this and this has happened. Oh wow! So, but then at least we know, and we have that information, and we can enact on that information. But you can't act on something that you don't know. And as you say, it's so easy. 3 classes in, and you think, I've not seen Dave for a while, and you actually no, I've not seen Dave in 3 weeks.
Which is okay if you've got 30 students, and you can kind of remember them all as they're going and as they're training. But as soon as you get more than that, you start to lose touch. I mean, as sad as it is, you kind of there'll be people training at your school that you don't remember their names.
Oh, absolutely.
200, 300 mark, especially if they're new and little kids or things like that. So I mean, software does that for you. It remembers for you. It tracks it all for you, so you don't have to think about it. You can think about curriculum. You can think about techniques. All that sort of stuff instead.
I can't tell you how many times, just quickly on this before I go back to the other point, how many times having, with each profile you can add a photo. That has gotten me out of. How many times? Like I've covered for example, I've covered a grading for because we have that many sessions. There's some sessions that I don't regularly work with the students because it's maybe a day that I'm not usually around, and that instructor was sick, and I had to cover the grading. And I went in, and I'm looking at this. There's 10 kids in front of me, and I'm thinking, I've got all this paperwork, and I think I don't know who any of these are. So I could have got them all one at a time, and then sort of played the memory game. And as instructors do, we draw these things on the table and to remind ourselves who's who. I had the system, so I just brought up the schedule, who was in. Tap on the name, up comes a face. Oh, that's him, that's her, that's right, brilliant. And I knew who everybody was. That saved me so many times. But just going back to what I was saying before, the thing that we found has been, and it's such a small thing, but it has, I know it has, personally has helped us with our retention, is the happy birthday messages.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing, but the amount of times we've had parents getting back in touch and go, thanks for sending Billy a happy birthday message. None of his other clubs have done that before. And it's just that little sort of personal touch that I think parents especially appreciate. And adults. I mean, there are some adults that come to training classes that, they do socially, they do kind of struggle. And these little messages that they get from the system, from us, it really helps.
Well, that's a lot of the times why people sign up to train in a martial arts school in the first place. I mean, they want to meet people and they want to get healthier, and they might, as a result of not being healthy or not knowing a lot of people, be a little bit socially awkward or a bit shy, or they haven't. I mean, martial arts always brings people out of their shell, but they haven't done that yet. So anything like that can only be a benefit.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, just as an idea for me and listeners, how many countries is this system running in at the moment? Is it?
I looked that up yesterday. Actually, it's 52 different countries.
Wow.
Currently using. Yeah, it's insane.
Wow. Do you see a difference in the way that the schools are using the system across the different countries, or is it fairly, do most people use it in a similar way? It's
actually fairly homogenized. Yeah.
Right.
So most of our market is in English-speaking countries, obviously, because we're useless at multilingual stuff. I speak a bit of French, but not nearly enough. And
more than I do.
So we're working on that. But so in the main English-speaking country, it's more differences between your types of martial art.
Okay.
In terms of, there's your community centres, there's your martial arts schools that are mostly kids focused, so they're kind of not glorified daycare centres, but you know what I mean. After school, the parents are still busy, so they go from school to the martial arts, and they're learning something at least, which is cool. And then you've got the sort of hardcore MMA group. You've got BJJ, who are different entirely, and you've got sort of traditional karate, traditional Chinese martial arts. And they all have very different ways of operating, which is really, really interesting. I mean, obviously similarities, otherwise we wouldn't be able to work for everyone. But it's just for example, with the kids' schools, it's very cutthroat as far as the marketing goes.
Yeah.
The focus for them and those school owners is more about marketing automation and lead generation and things like that, and parent management. Whereas with the other schools, you've got different demographics. So you've got sort of older people training, people in their 20s and 30s, and it's more about being an athlete rather than having someone look after your kids. So it's a completely different focus, and we've got to sort of cater be everything to those people and be flexible enough to work for across the different schools. So I mean, I constantly have 1,000 ideas to make it better, but obviously it's just time and resources and what we're going to focus on next and affect the most group. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. So what we'd love to do is do some sort of demographic report on how people are anonymous. So obviously we don't want to share anyone's data, but things like what the type of age range of people training are, how it's changed over time, what the sort of male-female ratio is, how certain schools, how your school measures up. If you're a karate school, how does it measure up to other karate schools? Things like that would be quite interesting, I think.
Absolutely.
Using the big data pool that we've got now.
Yeah. So what are some of the, if you care to disclose, what are some of the biggest difficulties that you faced over the development of the system from scratch to now? Has there been any one sort of bigger challenge than others, or?
It's more just the fact that we've got different sorts of competition. So we've got your established people in the market that have been around for a very long time, and they've got their ways, and they compete with us in a sort of indirect way. What I mean by that is they've got their software features and they tick a lot of boxes, but some of the things are built quite shallow. I don't want to bag any of them out, but it's just a different sort of mindset to what we've got. As far as our whole focus is on simplicity, there's this kind of do everything, but give many, many options, which I think people get a little bit freaked out by when they start using some of those older softwares.
Yeah.
they kind of are presented with so many options. They get this sort of analysis paralysis thing happening where they don't know what to do next.
Information overload, too much.
Exactly, yeah. So we kind of try and steer people. I have this sort of philosophy when I'm designing the different features and things, is that one screen and one view is for one purpose. So you kind of led through everything to make it really easy. So
yeah,
that's the idea.
And it from my point of view, that's perfect because I'm not going to say I'm a simple person. I'm not, but no, I mean, for me, I was learning. The thing is, when I started my school, I had lots of experience in martial arts and teaching, but I had no experience in running a business. And even later,
which is most martial artists. Yeah, it's 99% of martial artists who have no idea about business before they start running a school.
Absolutely, and if you're not careful, being presented with too much information is as you say, it freaks you out. And you just don't know how to use it. And I find, I mean, even now with your system, as you were saying, it's so easy to use. There are certain elements of it that I don't use very regularly, but I would say that there are other people out there that use it on a regular basis. And on the flip side, there may be areas of it that they don't use that I use on a regular basis. So it's nice, in, as you said at the start, it's sort of flexible in the respect of if you're running a little bit more of, say, maybe a hardcore school on a part-time basis as opposed to a full-time school that's catering to everything from 3-year-olds through to adults 6 days a week. You've got very, very different needs, yet the system is, and I could see how it would be, it's flexible to sort of cater to both ends, which is it's really cool.
Thank you.
Now, we've had one of the reasons we've actually prompted us to have the discussion about you guys coming on today. You've had a development in the software this week. I believe it was. Is it this? Yeah, it was this week, wasn't it? With if I can say the word, integration. There you go.
That's the one.
We got there with Go Cardless, which I know a lot of schools are now switching over to using. More recently, it's not that. Again, I've spoken about this a few months ago. It's not that I have anything against billing companies per se, but it's just I think that the market's changing now, and people are starting to sort of take control of their financial side of things a little bit more. And
definitely.
Go Cardless is one of those systems now that a lot of schools are using. So I know that it's been a challenge for you to get it right, to the level that you would be happy with. So just wondered if you could talk about that a little bit and about how it integrates into the system and what people could do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, going sort of back, looking at the history of martial arts business as well. I mean, everyone, the first thing you want to do is make sure your finances are squared away. Yeah. And typically, your old sort of billing companies, they would sign you up to a big contract. Yeah. And you would pay them up to sort of 6% of your income.
Too much.
It's insane. To manage the billing, but they also did things like extra services, like chase up failed payments and things like that for you. And it was more of a hands-on approach than a technological approach. And Go Cardless have come out when they launched. They were kind of a revolution in that way, where they used sort of a technology layer on the old traditional direct debit billing, which allows companies like us to use what's called an API to talk to their interface. So you can use our interface alongside everything else you can do, like reporting and tracking attendance and all that sort of stuff, to auto-bill your students, and it shows up in just the one screen. So you don't have to go between different things and try and manage multiple databases and make sure everything's up to date. You can literally just do it all from the one software. And we were super excited to partner with them. We've been talking to them for about 4 years now. I remember going to their office when I think they had about 10 people working there, trying to get them to open up in different markets as well, because I mean, it's obviously important for us to be viable in Australia, and direct debit's massive in Australia, with a lot of sort of old school companies controlling the market there. But they launched in Australia in March, and they're opening an office there in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And so we were super excited to get on board. But it's taken us about 6 to 7 months to really do the integration properly, so that it's as smooth as possible. So the complex thing when you're designing software is to make it simple is a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yes.
So the more simple it appears on the front end, the more complex it is on the back end.
Yeah.
To make it that simple. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but we got it done. Last night went live, and there's a few little teething problems, but it's going really, really well.
Excellent. I mean, it's so. Am I right in thinking that will it allow? Again, I'm learning at the same time here with this. Would it allow if, say, somebody comes in for a trial class and they decide at the end of that class?
Yep.
And will it allow the instructor to sign them up through Martyialitics as opposed to going to Go Cardless and then communicating between? Right. Okay. Because there's the way that we're doing it at the moment is a member comes in, we use Go Cardless to sign them up. I then have to get them to fill out their details to go onto Martyialitics so that everything matches up. But I'm guessing now it'll be one simple process.
Yeah, exactly. There's multiple different ways you can do it, but yeah, essentially, if someone comes in, they want to train. They've come through as a lead, and you've converted them to a student. Then you can add their details, send them a Go Cardless mandate request form. And they get it in an email, and they can fill that in right there in front of you or in their own time, and then you can start billing. It's just really simple.
Wow, that's so much better. Would that create them a profile on Martyialitics as well at the same time?
Yep.
Wow, so it's all in one go.
It's directly from Martyialitics, and then it pushes everything to Go Cardless. You don't actually have to ever go back to Go Cardless dashboard.
Wow.
To manage anything, you can do it all directly from Martyialitics. So it takes all the confusion of having multiple systems running at once away. Yeah,
because and one of the we're used to it now, so we've got systems in place to deal with it. And it sounds a bit funky, but we say as a student comes in, we, as most schools do, we have an incentive. We incentivize them to start on the first class. We don't force them. They have a trial class, and we simply say, if you are welcome to another trial class, but if you join today, we'll give you your enrollment fee half price. And 99% of the time, people will go, oh, yeah, if I can save money. Jimmy, do you like it? Yes. Okay, let's do it. And then they go through Go Cardless, and then at the end of that, I have a little chat with them and say, I'm going to be sending you a link from our system. If you could fill it out, and then that's how we do it. But this way around, we'll be able to do it rather than sending them giving them a Go Cardless thing to fill out. They'll be able to do it all right from scratch. That will simplify things.
Yeah, you'll be able to sort of slide them over a tablet and let them fill in their details and sign a waiver if you need. Then you can send them the Go Cardless form. So yeah, it depends on how you want to do it. You can set up whatever process works best for you. You can still do what you're doing as well, but then sync up that mandate into Martyialitics as well. So, up to you, really.
So if they were to want to change between different memberships types as well, would that be something that the system could do, and you could sort of have information?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, it makes it better for old gits like me that gets a little bit stuck in the ways with how things now. But no, it's very clever stuff, and it's good to see the industry's getting this level of sort of involvement, because we're a little bit. Let's be honest, as an industry, martial arts as a whole, we're a little bit behind everybody else.
It's just such a homogenized thing. I mean, martial arts doesn't see itself as a martial arts industry. Yeah, it's kind of, I'm a karate school, I'm not a martial arts school, and the different groups and associations for each different thing. There's taekwondo, different types of taekwondo. They're all broken up in infighting and drama, and there's no real sort of main body. For all of martial arts, like there is for other things. I think that's part of the problem. But hopefully, with tools to empower sort of individual school owners and small business owners like we all are, we can make that easy.
Cool. Now I understand that you don't want to make any promises. It's the case with everybody. But do you have any sort of future plans or goals or things that you're working towards that you're wanting to?
We do.
Okay. Yeah, that you could share with us, maybe? Tease, hint at.
Well, definitely. We've got the obvious things, like we want to add SMS very soon.
Okay.
So that's happening as well. So
Very
a lot
cool.
of our considerations, they've got to work for our global audience.
Yes.
Like I said before, we've got so many people in different countries. I mean, there might only be one or two in those countries, but we don't want to sort of leave them behind by using something that they're not going to be able to use. So we think of it that way. We've got SMS coming. We've got a student app coming as well.
Oh, wow.
We've got a booking tool, so you can have people book your classes online.
Fantastic.
Track events and all that sort of stuff. They're probably the obvious ones. And then we've got a few secret things.
Secret things, I like it. Well, those three that you mentioned are three that I'm already using through different systems. So the ability to have everything in one tool will be brilliant for me. I know that at one point you were working on developing a sort of a mobile platform version as well. Is that still something that you're looking? Okay,
that's sort of mostly done in terms of you can log in on your smartphone browser and do things like add students and track attendance and view their profiles and manage your school settings and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to roll out all the rest of the features into that. It's just that our philosophy is that we're tablet first, then desktop, then mobile.
Yeah.
Tablet being the most versatile because a lot of people travel from school to school,
Yes.
different venues and things. And then desktop for longer form work. So you don't want to be doing data entry on a mobile phone. It would just be autocorrect disaster.
Yeah.
And also take a long time. So we want to simplify things for that specific platform, but also use it how people would want to use it. So things like checking people in, signing waivers and things, that's obvious. So we've got that in there. But it's more about the context.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is now with mobile phones, they're going. We have these sorts of phases that the industry or they go through in that they go smaller, they go bigger, they go smaller. And the minute we're going through all the phones are getting bigger again. They sort of turning. I mean, I've got the Samsung S9 Plus, and it's I'm literally carrying a monitor around in my pocket. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Strap one of the CRTs to you.
Yeah. It's getting like that again. I remember I had one of these Sony Walkman phones, and it was tiny. It was tiny, and that was the phase where everybody wanted small phones. And wow, look how small your phone is.
I had this like Nokia phone that was like a nugget. I reckon it looked like a rock that you could skim on a lake. Like,
oh,
the worst design for a phone.
Blue, is it like a blue? I can't remember. Yeah, I remember the one you mean.
Sort of teardrop shape.
Yes, I had one of those as well.
I thought it was really cool.
It had like one of the first 0.3 megapixel cameras on it. And
And it was colour.
Yes, we're showing our age now, aren't we? Brilliant.
Yes.
Oh well, thanks for coming on today and talking to us about all the different things that you're doing and things that you've got coming in the future. If people have any questions or want to get in touch with you to talk about your products and what it is you do, what's the best place for them? Where's the best place for them to go? How to get in touch?
Best place would be our website. The mouthful of a name that we've chosen. It's www.Martyialitics. It's martial arts analytics together. Basically, Martyialitics. MARTIALYTICS.com.
Cool. I must admit, I do spell it wrong nearly every single time I write it down.
I think we've had some funny ones. We've had like martial lyrics. We had someone complain that every time they Google us, they get Eminem song lyrics come up. They can't find us. So that's pretty funny. We've had Marshall Yetis.
Marshall Yetis. Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. We wanted to make some plush Yetis to send to that guy. But we've got to actually focus on doing serious work, so that didn't happen.
No, you should make Yetis. That like the Go Compare advert. They could have a Yeti. That could be your thing. That would work. That would so work.
We're open to anything.
Marshall Yetis. Wow.
Yeah, we've had some good ones.
I've it's the same. It's the same with us. We had somebody ring us up to ask us about marriage counselling. Marriage guidance.
Oh yeah,
because they'd searched for something and they got marital arts, and then they got our phone number. Yeah. So we get it as well. We get it as well.
I'm surprised we haven't had marital lyrics in like wedding songs suggestion.
Well, it's going to happen now. You've said it.
I've jinxed it now.
Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Joining us to share a little bit about Martyialitics and yourself and the things you do. And we'll catch up soon, no doubt.
Yep, no doubt.
Thank you
We'll have
very
to do
much.
this again.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. Thank you.
Enjoy our podcast? Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review Kickback with Chris on iTunes today.
So thanks to Brad from Martyialitics for his time with us today to talk about their systems that they're using. It's something that I've been using in my school now, as I said in the interview, for a number of years, and it's been of great benefit to me. And, you know, there's quite a few times on social media where people do ask, oh, no, what systems do people use? And everybody has their own opinions and ideas on what the best one is. And I've tried out, multiple different systems, and for me, this was the one that I felt worked best, especially as it was coming from, as Brad says, somebody with martial arts experience, both as a student and at instructor level. So, yeah, if you're interested in finding out more, I would strongly suggest you go and have a look. It's a great tool, whether you're a multi-style setup across the board, or you're a newer school with small member numbers. There is something in that system for everybody to use. So 2 episodes back, we actually introduced a new voicemail system onto our website where listeners could submit their own audio clips. It's actually a really cool little system, and we used it extensively in our Jackie Chan special a couple of episodes back. Now, we've had some more listener recordings in, and I've purposefully not listened to them so that I could, I can include them in the show today and sort of answer them as they come in. So I've saved them up. I've got them there ready to listen to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off and have a quick listen to them. I'm going to let them play them for you guys. Just trim them down a little bit where needs be, and then I will come back with the reply straight after.
So the first thing on my list is I'd like to hear some more sort of discussion around why martial arts cinema seems to have become more and more unpopular over the years, particularly amongst martial artists. It's a subject you've touched on once or twice, but I think it'd be quite interesting to sort of drill down into what the reasons behind that are. I first noticed in the early 90s. At that time, there's a flurry of sort of wire play and Wong Fei Hung type movies coming out of Hong Kong, and the Western audiences didn't seem too keen on it. A lot of people found it funny and commented that it looked too unrealistic, which is pretty funny to me, actually, because it's fantasy, it's a movie, of course it's going to be unrealistic. To my mind, if you're looking for realism, you go to your local dojang or your local dojo or tournaments, and that's where you're going to see real fighting. But this is a film, for goodness sake. So yeah, I've always found that quite funny. But I mean, at the same time, I do understand, and I don't get me wrong, I respect and enjoy the no wire play movies, Jackie Chan, Tony Jaa, and guys like that who do the death-defying stunts. But I also like the wire play stuff too, and a lot of the times it's more than just the fight scenes; it's the stories behind those films that are attractive to me. In all honesty, to me, watching wire play kung fu movies is no different than watching Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. They're just fantasy stories, so of course, there's going to be fantasy elements. So that was just one of the things I wanted to touch on. But also, there's a lot of movies out there now with martial arts in them, but not many that are actually based on martial arts or have stories based around martial arts. And you find that more recently, the ones that do all sort of sound the same. They all sound like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with that ridiculous music and the sound effects. And it really infuriates me to see that happen, because now it sort of just relegates all kung fu movies to this type, and you get all these art critics coming out the woodwork and offering their opinion on how colourful the film was and how well made it was, not knowing the first thing about martial arts or what a martial arts audience would be looking for in a film. I mean, they even went to the extent of redubbing a lot of the older kung fu films that come out, Drunken Master 2, Iron Monkey, and you can find Tai Chi Master. You can find versions of these films now where they've been retitled, redubbed, represented with the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon music and sound effects, and it just really, really winds me up, and I refuse to watch any kung fus in that format, to be honest. I'd be interested to hear yours and other people's opinions on this, and just am I alone in feeling like this, or do other people feel the same thing, or is there like a completely different point of view that I haven't considered in all this? But yeah, I just think it's an interesting one for some discussion.
Okay, cool. Some good pointers there. Oh, and before we carry on, I think it's worth me mentioning that actually came from Mags. I should have said that before I played the recording, but I did actually totally forget. Wow, okay, so where to start in all of that? There's quite a lot to get through. I probably will miss some things out because there's quite a lot covered in that recording. I mean, with regards to the wire play in films, I think what it comes down to is it's cultural differences, really. It's just, different people liking different things. I think to a lot of audiences outside of the UK, the notion of something like, for example, Robin Hood, a bunch of people living in some trees and saving the day, and that seems a little bit far fetched. And then if you think further afield, like the Bollywood industry, to a lot of people over here seems, they just don't get it. They don't understand it. Yet this is a massive industry that's super well supported. So I think it's just differences across the world, really. And I mean, I have a massive appreciation for those type of movies, and with everything, they go through these ebbs and flows. They go through sort of up and down periods where trends change and people's interests change, and it only takes that one movie to spark something, and then sort of copycat type of productions follow. Maybe copycat productions is a little bit harsh, but certainly they're sort of trendsetters. If you think sort of back to the late 90s when the first Matrix film came out, following that we had sort of a rush of movies that all used those same sort of sound effect types. So you had like Romeo Must Die and Cradle to the Grave and films like that, and they all used those same sort of dense sort of whoosh and the sound effects that were associated with the Matrix films. And just thinking off the top of my head, so you had like Romeo Must Die, Cradle to the Grave, Kiss of the Dragon Unleashed. They all came in sort of that same sort of period of time. There was the Steven Seagal one as well, with DMX in it, which has just exited my head completely. But anyway, and even if you look at something, for example, like Romeo Must Die, there was a lot of there was a lot of wire play type sequences in there that actually introduced Western audiences even further to those sort of ideas, and it was an interesting combination of grounded martial arts and sort of the more wire play type effects, and so there's a real sort of interesting mix in there. I think at the minute, though, with the industry, I think the way that it's going, I don't necessarily think that it's more, or should I say it's less popular. I just think it's changing. I think now the trend within martial arts cinema is they're going for sort of a more realistic, sort of brutal edge to the action. They're going for more of a shock value, I suppose. The sequences tending to be, very, very, very highly choreographed and very demonstrating the skill of the arts involved. Now the people, I think, especially with the internet and the interest in things like UFC and things like that growing, people are taking more of an interest in the styles involved, and that's been demonstrated in a lot of movies now, where they're being very, very careful to follow the roots of particular styles. So it's just the ever-changing face of martial arts cinema, and it's going to go through these ebbs and flows where for a while things take a little bit of a dip and then they come back. If you look at the Raid franchise, for example, Taken, things like that. There are still this is still a popular genre, and there are still a lot of people following it. It's just perhaps just going through a slightly more lean period. You have to remember that at the end of the day, this is business, and the studios have to see a return on their investment. And I am sure that it will bounce back to what it's been previously, if at all it's dipped off. I mean, I'm not involved in a production level, so I don't know the numbers. But it's certainly, to me, it seems we've got this. There's a steady stream of movies coming out constantly, and at the minute, the exciting thing for me as a fan is that remakes are very much the thing. So if you dip back into sort of the the 80s and 90s catalogue of movies, some of the potential there for remakes and revisits is amazing, you know. So exciting times. Let's see what comes from it. If anybody else would like to send in any audio clips on anything to do with the martial arts industry as a whole, it doesn't have to be film-based. It can be absolutely anything at all. All you need to do is visit our website at kickbackpodcast.com. On the subject of the podcast website, for some reason, the hosts that we use are particularly useless. And from time to time, the websites do have this ridiculous thing going on, whereas you have to type or should I say, you have to sort of hit return twice. Why it does it, I really don't know. I'm not a technical guru in that sense. But the website is there and it is working. It's just for some reason, for whatever reason, doesn't work the first time you click it. So you just have to click twice, which isn't that much of a hardship. But we have had a couple of people saying, oh, your website's not working. It is working. It's just been a bit of a pain. And I really don't know why. So keep at it. So yeah, if you want to send any audio clips in, please do. I hope whatever you're doing this weekend, you have a great time, and I hope to catch up with you all next week.